Welcome as the BARP Consumer Affairs Committee, in collaboration with the Fair Trading Commission, presents this virtual seminar entitled Consumer Law, Your Rights and Responsibilities on Fair Trading Practices. So at this time, we will now be welcoming opening remarks from the President of the Barbados Association of Retired Persons, Ms. Marilyn Rice-Bowen.
Good morning, all. Mrs. Dava Leslie Ward, Director, Consumer Protection, Miss Nakila Hutchison-Holder, Ms. Samantha Hines, Ms. Julia Regis, our presenter for today, Directors of the BARP Board, Chairman of the Consumer Committee and his hardworking committee, John Martineau, AGM of BARP, Mrs. Betty Prout. I recognize also past President Ed Bushell of BARP. Ed, really good to see you this morning. Executive Assistant of BARP, Ms. Blair Niles. Our communications personnel, Mr. Peter Boyce, and website manager, Ms. Carolyn Scanterbury, and our treasured members of BARP. A happy Wednesday to you. I want to extend a very warm welcome to all of those joining us via Zoom and those joining us via YouTube. This second consumer awareness session created such a buzz within our membership that it was oversubscribed, thus the extension of the event via YouTube. Your interest in the subject matter is noted, and I must place on record our gratitude to the Fair Trading Commission for partnering with us here at BARP. Today's topic on fair practices, well, I'm sure will evoke lots of questions. Kudos to John Martineau and his team for selecting the topic and ensuring that all the background work has been completed. BARP is committed to ensure that our seniors are empowered. We therefore will continue to present programs virtually as we seek to encourage you to stay home, stay safe, and provide us with the space to meet you virtually. This morning, unfair trading practices, I want you to take your pens and your pencils out. Of course, I know there will be quite a few questions, but I want to welcome everybody and to express gratitude to the team of the Fair Trading Commission for seeking BARP as a partner. With BARP as a partner, you are on very good footing. So welcome to everybody, and let's just sit back and let's see how much information we can absorb because we are all consumers. Though we are seniors, we are consumers. So good morning and welcome to all.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I now have the pleasure of introducing our main presenter, Mrs. Julia Regis. Mrs. Julia Regis is a Consumer Protection Officer at the Fair Trading Commission. She joined the Commission in 2002 and held the positions of Help Desk Officer and Senior Clerk prior to her current position, which she has held for the past 6 years, assisting the Director with the investigation and reporting of regulations relating to consumer protection. Ladies and gentlemen, I present our main presenter, Mrs. Julia Regis.
Good morning, Peter, and good morning, BARP members. Thanks for having us again today. And just like your president said, last time was quite an interesting session, lots of questions, lots of interaction, and I'm sure today will be no different as we go a little bit further into the topic on fair trade practices. And I can tell you this morning, it is a wide topic, lots of things to address under that subject heading. And I just want you to know that, we're here to answer questions for you this morning, make any clarifications if you have any. And if we can't answer any of those questions, you can still let us know and we will get back to you with an answer. So let's start our presentation this morning. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to start this slideshow. So David would have took you through how we started at the commission and why the piece of legislation was enacted in the first place. And she gave you a quite an extensive overview of the legislation. And I'm just going to be going a little bit closer to some of the specifics of the legislation and how it affects you and I as a consumer when we go out to shop, or even when we decide to buy something. But before I start, I just want to bring this disclaimer to you that the views that are being expressed in this presentation are those of myself and do not necessarily represent the views of the Fair Trading Commission, the board, or the Chief Executive Officer. So I just want to say that at the onset of the presentation. So first thing, we need to always reiterate what is a consumer or who is a consumer. And the legislation gives us that description. A consumer is someone who acquires goods or services for private use, does not acquire goods for trade or commerce, and they do not acquire them for the purpose of repairing them for resale or fixtures of land. So there may be some of you who might be sole traders. You might be able to make a dress or something really good, and so you go down to town, you buy some material, and you go home and you make up these outfits and so on, and you sell them, or you do that. Some people come to you for you to do that, and there's a price attached, and so you exchange money as a result. The legislation do not address those type of persons because you will be classified as someone who is in trade or commerce. You're making money as a result of what you are doing. And it goes on, it says, even if you are repairing something, or even if it's a fixture on land. And when we think about fixtures on land, we talk about houses, we talk about buildings. The legislation do not cover those aspects. What are consumer goods as opposed to consumer services? And that's also defined in the legislation. So consumer goods, when we talk about consumer goods, we're talking about goods which you use for your private use or consumption. And the pictorial representation tells you what we are talking about. So you go to the supermarket, you buy your produce or whatever, and even the appliances, which we go to the retailers and we purchase, those are the goods we are talking about. And services, it is right here. We're talking about the Visa cards. Everybody now is using online services. And we're also talking about the cellular phone services. These are services that we use, that we consume, and on a daily basis. So the legislation looks at these things. So who is considered a business under the Act? And the Act specifically says who is a business. And it includes a trade or profession and the activities of a professional or trade association or public authority. A person who's involved in trade or commerce, a person habitually conducting business, and it's not a one-off sale. So let's look at that person who habitually conducts business. And you know, we see all around us, there are people who might say, you know what, I am not registered, or they don't even claim to have a business because they might not have a business name. So they don't see themselves as a business. But when we look at the activities of that person, and when we look at the legislation, that person will be considered having a business enterprise because they're in the habit of selling goods. So that person will fall under the purview of a business as defined by the legislation. And you know, even not a one-off sale. So we have seen popping up, and I know that you can relate to persons who might be out there selling cars. You see the signs all over we buy cars, any type of cars, we buy cars. And then you go and you really delve into what this person is doing and say, oh, we don't get cars regularly. We might sell a car maybe every 3 months or whatever. But at the same time, you are in trade or commerce, you are selling a good, and you will be classified under the legislation as a person in business. So we want to make that clear. It doesn't have to that you are registered, even though we would, that would be a good thing to do under the law. But if you are habitually doing it, and it doesn't matter how often, you will be classified as a business. And even those persons now we see cropping up online. And COVID has brought it to light because so many things are happening online. So we have all these persons on marketplace selling goods, selling services. They might be selling new or used or whatever the case might be, but they're selling habitually. If something was to happen and we had to have complaints or whatever the case is, and we investigate, we recognize that, hey, this is what this person do, whether you do it on a site or not, you will be classified as a business. So I need to make that point that yes, we will be looking at that as a business enterprise. So the legislation starts, Section 3 of the Consumer Protection Act speaks to the topic that I am addressing this morning, which is unfair trade practices. And the overarching area of this section is misleading and deceptive conduct. And, it's like when people might ask you, so what do you mean by misleading or being deceptive? And so I'm going to delve in a little bit more as I explain what it is, because it's quite a wide area. So Section 12 states that it is unlawful for a business to make in trade or commerce as a supplier engage in conduct that is likely to mislead or deceive a consumer. So basically, you do not have to outright deceive a consumer or mislead them. But even if what you said or what you did was likely to, it is an offense under the Consumer Protection Act. So I need you to pay attention to that, because failing to disclose relevant information can be misleading. It is as easy as that. And in most cases, we recognize that businesses are relying on fine print to really give a disclaimer into what they're selling or promoting. Even that is misleading. Even that is deceptive under the legislation. So businesses, when they're advertising, the print should be in such a way that it is legible, but we will get into that a little bit more as we proceed. So when we talk about misleading, I want to speak directly to the word, because the word mislead basically means, and it's construed to mean, that you're leading this person, your audience, into believing something that is not there. So, and again, you see how it is. It is the intention that you have when you put out that advertisement or whatever the case is. So the conduct then means that you are making people, you're putting people to hold a false belief, because really what you put out there ain't making no sense. It does not have any accuracy to it, or even if it has accuracy to it, it might be so little. That is an issue for us under the legislation. So we want you to be aware of that. So intention. So, you might have some businesses coming back and say, but, oh, we didn't intend to do that, or we didn't mean that. Under the law, intention is irrelevant. And why is it irrelevant? Because you may breach the law even if you thought the statement was correct when you made it. But when we delve into the issue, as it relates to the legislation, and we recognize, hey, this is misleading, or, you know, when we look at the audience that this was being targeted to, yes, there was some misleading happening going on. So we are going to address that. Business conduct is likely to breach the law if it creates a misleading overall impression among the audience. For example, let's talk about the price. And, you know, sometimes we see a price and that causes us to want to buy it because, hey, this price sounds real good. Or you might check around and recognize, hey, you know, this body's selling it cheaper, so let me go here. Your advertisement convince the person to come get it because of the price. Those things we look at. We look at the value or the quality of consumer goods. All of that is under this legislation. So the conduct, when we look at conduct, because we talked about conduct prior, we can say that conduct includes, but it's not limited to, actions and statements such as the advertisements that are being put out there, promotions, quotations, statements, and even any representation made by a person. So you may go into a store and the person might be, the sales rep might be telling you something about the product, and you know, you make the purchase based on what they would have said to you. We will look at even that, because what that person said caused you to make the purchase. So that is also important, even the representations made by a person. So it is important to look at how the behavior of the business affects the consumer's impression of a good or service. So when deciding if conduct is misleading or deceptive, or likely to mislead or deceive, the most important question that we need to ask is whether the overall impression created by the conduct is false or inaccurate. So even if a consumer discovers the true position before the conclusion of the transaction, the business will have breached would have breached the act, because you withheld this information. You took my money and you had information that was important to me making that decision whether to purchase or not. That would be an issue. But I want to state here is that whether the conduct is misleading or deceptive will depend on the particular circumstances of the case. So we're going to look at, it's not going to be an overarching position that we're going to take, but we are going to look at a case-by-case basis when we are looking at these situations. So the medium, even the medium in which the advertisement was put out there. So we're going to look at radio. We're going to listen to the radio shows. We're going to read the papers daily, and we have officers who do that on a daily basis. We are going to, even television advertisements are some things that we look at on a daily basis, because we want that when businesses put that information out there to the public, that it meets the requirements of the legislation. And that's why we're here. We're here to protect the consumers of Barbados, and we too are consumers. So, and that is part of our mandate, to safeguard the interests of the consumers of Barbados. And that's what we do. Even one of the issues, and you know, sometimes when you sit down, you think, you might not even think that this is relevant or this is an issue, but even silence can be an issue. Why? And you might ask me why? Because it can be misleading if a business fails to disclose to a customer important information for them to make a decision. So if a person fails to alert the next person to facts known, they know about this is the product or the good, and they fail to disclose that, and the facts are relevant to the decision, that is misleading under the legislation. So important details a person should know. If it is not conveyed to them, a change in a circumstance, meaning that the information provided was incorrect, but you didn't disclose it. You know, so even that, when we look at that situation, that can be misleading and deceptive. So we want you to be aware of that. So you go out to purchase an item. So let's say you went to purchase a vehicle, because everybody is now you might be upgrading your vehicle, and so you're getting rid of it, but it might have had an accident. You got it repaired, yes, and everything, and it looks pretty new. But you go to purchase this vehicle because the price is right, and you took the mechanic because that's what we advise you to do, and to check the vehicle and everything, and everything seems good. But yet this person did not disclose that the vehicle was involved in an accident. So you go ahead, you make the purchase, and then a few days or a few weeks down the road, you recognize something is wrong with the vehicle. And yet that information should have been told to you so that you can decide, you know what, yeah, I can work with that. I can take that. You didn't say to them that this was the position. So important information must be disclosed to the consumer at the time of making that decision to make the purchase. So it is best to disclose all the information, and then you will be in the right. It is, I gave you everything that I knew. You make the choice then if you're going to accept or if you're going to reject. So give that information to the consumer. And just like I said, what the legislation says about misleading and deceptive conduct, and this is exactly how it is defined under the legislation, that a person shall not, in trade or commerce as a supplier, engage in conduct that is or is likely to be misleading or deceptive. Disclaimers and fine print. We see that a lot. Persons tend to put, and when you get to read it, it is very important information which you need to have to make an informed decision. So quite a few businesses rely on disclaimers and disclosures or even clarifications, but they have this buried in fine print as an excuse. Sometimes it becomes an excuse for engaging in misleading or deceptive conduct. But today, I want to say to you is that fine print is illegal under the Consumer Protection Act. So this information, like I said, it is important for you making a decision. You need to put it in a print that is legible and even close to the prominent display that you are advertising. So you're advertising cars, and before we would have had quite a few businesses advertising cars, and what would be the catch for persons will be the monthly payment. So you will have $6.99 monthly. But then at the bottom of that ad, you will see special conditions apply. And the special conditions were always in this fine print that really, it was like, you didn't really worry to read it because it was quite difficult. That was an issue under the legislation, and we addressed that per the requirements of the legislation. And we're going to speak to that a little bit more. But I just want to say to you, if you're going to be advertising any good, any product, any service, and the information is such of importance, it must be in clear and intelligible language so that I can make a decision whether to buy it or not. So advertisers must pay particular care and in relation to the products and the services that they're going to advertise. And we know some businesses might tell you, but we have an advertising company or doing our ads. But even those companies are not exempt from the implications of the legislation, because they too need to know the requirements of the legislation as they do their business. So all the promoters, like I said again, promoters, advertisers, all the quotations that you give persons, all the statements that you give them must be clear, must be sufficient information, and it must be accurate so that persons can make an informed decision. But then you might ask me, but if I don't get this information and I go ahead and I purchase, then what happens? And at that, like I said, it will be a case by case basis. And you had to come to the commission. We will look at that situation by a case by case basis, because then we will need to have documentation if you were given documentation. And to go through that documentation to see what the documentation said. Even like I said before, even the statements made by the representative of the company. And so they can't opt out of it, because we've said to businesses, you need to put things in place to ensure that your staff is trained, that the products that you're selling they know what they're talking about. Because if I or any other person comes into the business and they tell me something, I have a right to rely on that information to make a decision. So it should not be an excuse where, oh, this person is new, or this person only came on for a specific period. If you're going to be doing that, we're not saying not to hire, but yet you will be held accountable for the information that that person, that employee gives to the consumer. So you need to train, you need to put protocols in place to ensure that these things do not happen. Even if it means that that person will call somebody senior to address the issue. Whatever you do in your course of business, you need to ensure that the information that is given is correct. Because when we look after investigation, we recognize, hey, you breached the legislation, there are penalties that are attached, and we will talk about at the end of it. But there are penalties attached to the legislation, and we are at the stage now, we've been around for some time, we are at the stage now of enforcement, of taking enforcement action against any business who contravenes the legislation for which we enforce. I know that was quite a mouthful, but and that is the like I said, it is quite extensive, this section of the legislation. I think the next thing I'm gonna have you to do, since I've talked quite a bit, is I'm gonna put up a poll. I think that's ready, Samantha. So I'm gonna give you just a few minutes to answer the poll, just to ensure that you are listening and you're understanding. The poll is up. So the poll has been completed. And I seeing that everybody who did the poll answered it correctly. We had 100% of those answers submitted, and they were correct. So congratulations, you are listening, and something I said, you are understanding what I'm saying. Great. So let's proceed. False representations. And Section 13 speaks to, or the legislation speaks to, false representation. So this is an example here. A company imports refurbished phones and sells them as new. And a company advertises Android phones, including Samsungs, on sale, but the consumer goes and finds Android phones on sale, but there were no Samsungs. And you know, this is a real life examples. What we are putting here as examples are situations which we would have encountered here at the commission. So it is unlawful for a business to make false or misleading representations about goods or services when supplying, offering to supply, or promoting those goods or services. So this particular business stated in their ad that they had refurbished, that they are selling phones, they were new phones. But then when the consumer made the purchase, it had history on it. It was refurbished. That was not disclosed. That is an offense under the legislation. If an item is new, it must be told. If an item is refurbished or reconditioned, it must be told. So that information, like I said earlier, it must be accurate. And the next scenario was that this particular business said they have Samsung phones. And, you know, some people might want a Samsung as compared to an iPhone or even another brand. And this particular business said, you know what, we have Samsung phones on sale. But then when the consumer went, they found Android phones, but there were no Samsung. And what was the catch was that the price was a good price. So that, you know, enticed persons to go over to the store, but then to find out, you know what, there were no Samsung phones. That is misleading. That is deceptive, and that is a false representation. So of course we would have addressed these particular issues, these businesses, so that this does not occur again. It must be accurate. It must. So the information you put out there, we are watching closely, and we will be coming when we see these things. We will be contacting you when we see these things. Another one of the issues or things that are addressed under this specific section is testimonials, consumer warranties and guarantees, sponsorship approval or affiliation. And you know, when we talk about testimonials, I always remember, and it was just a few years ago, the, you know, persons putting up that, oh, this product can do all these things. And especially you hear a lot of this in the health promotions that, you know, this product can do this and it can cure this and it can do all of these things. And you know what, I want to say to you that businesses need to be cautious of doing these things, because if, again, it is found that it's not true, or that you are using what we call sometimes a form of puffery, meaning that you are enhancing really what is not there. You don't have any evidence to support the claim that you're making, then that is a problem for us. And even as recent in this COVID time, there was a business advertising that the service they were providing, you know, would knock out COVID. It was no match for COVID. And, you know, that was a bold statement. And it was at the time, just around this time last year, where, you know, COVID, we had our first COVID cases and so on, and that was being promoted, and we had to address that business. They had to give a retraction because there was no scientific evidence to prove what they were saying. So we pay close attention to these type of things. So you will find persons who would say, you know what, oh, this particular customer used the product or the service, and you know, and they had such good reviews or from the use of it or whatever the case is. Be mindful of those things, because what the testimonials do is that they can give consumers confidence in a product or service on the basis that another person, and particularly a celebrity or a well-known person, is using this product, or that they're satisfied with the good. But you know what? It is unlawful to make false or misleading representations that purports to be a testimonial or by any person, or that it concerns a testimonial by any person in relation to goods or services. Because testimonials, they're used to persuade persons to come into to shop, and sometimes that might be to their detriment, and because it's only based on their belief. So we need to be mindful of those things. And this even goes a little further, because having these testimonials from a specific business can also result in, and this is another piece of legislation, but it can also infringe on fair competition, because consumers then might be maybe directed just to your business because, hey, your product seems so much better than mine. But there's no basis for saying it. So you need to be mindful of those statements. Consumer warranties and guarantees. And, you know, quite a few consumers would have issues with this particular area as it pertains to consumer warranties and guarantees. But under the same specific piece of legislation and under Section 13, it states at Section J that a person shall not, in trade or commerce as a supplier, make false or misleading representations concerning the existence, exclusion, or effect of any condition, warranty, guarantee, right, or remedy relating to goods or services. And in that instance, we can think about persons putting up signs which says, no exchange, no refund. Or it might even say to you, exchanges only within a specific time, within 7 days or within 14 days. Those are the type of statements that you may see some businesses put up. But under the CPA, under the legislation, when you buy products and services, they come with an automatic guarantee, and that is that they will work and do what the specific piece of equipment is expected to do. But if you buy an item, you buy something, and it doesn't work, or it doesn't work as prescribed by the manufacturer's specifications, and you would have followed the use, how, you know, the manuals on how to use it and everything, and it does not work as specified, you have rights as a consumer. And you have rights as a consumer, and those rights are listed under the Consumer Guarantees Act, which is enforced by the Office of Public Counsel. And the rights under the Consumer Guarantees Act are, if the item can be repaired, that's the first option the business has. If it cannot be repaired, then the business might opt to replace it. And the next step they can take is to give a refund. So there are options that a business has in order to remedy the situation for you, the consumer. But I just want to say here, there are, however, some exceptions that you must be aware of, because we get the calls too where persons might have made a purchase and simply change their mind. They don't want it anymore. So they go away, they go home. You know what? I really don't want this anymore. Or they might go home. Maybe they bought a dress or an outfit or whatever the case is, and maybe their significant other or somebody said, you know what? I don't like that on you. That color does not look good on you. Doesn't suit you. And so they think, you know what? I carry this back to the store. I don't want this no more. They found it cheaper somewhere else, so they didn't shop around as we always suggest. But then some people will say to us, but you know what, I don't like shopping around. I don't like all this walking. If I see something and I want it, I can buy it. But then you know what, they change their mind, or they might go a few stores down the road and find it cheaper, and they want to return it. Because what we found out is that quite a few stores in town are selling the same thing, just different prices. So it might be $5 or $10 less. So they went down the road and saw it for $5 or $10 less, and so they want to return it to get, so that they could go to the next store to get the cheaper price, or that you decided you did not like the purchase, or you had no use of it anymore. You misused the product in a way that caused the problem. So you didn't use the item to the manufacturer's specifications, or that you were aware that the item had a fault, but you still went ahead and you purchased the product, but then you recognize, you know what, this issue is bigger than what I had anticipated. Or it could be an issue where you asked for a specific service to be done in a certain way, and it was against the advice of the representative. So these are no exceptions where now you will not be entitled to have a refund or a replacement or an exchange. But there are some businesses who will, we call it good customer relations, might offer you a credit note, and we get the call. So is a credit note legal? It is not listed under our legislation, but what businesses have chosen to do is give you that option, because they are not obligated under the law to give the replacement, the exchange, or the refund. So they say, you know what, we're gonna meet you halfway. We're gonna give you a credit note. So you have this credit note, and you can use this credit note. They give you a timeline for which to use in the credit note. So you go back maybe within a month or maybe 3 months, and you can use it in the store to get something else. Or they might opt to charge you a restocking fee. And that is a question we get too. So what is a restocking fee? So why are they charging me a restocking fee? Let me break it down for you a little bit where it relates to the restocking fee. If the item is defective, a business should not charge a restocking fee. If you went to the store, and you know, I can speak for myself, you know, sometimes we women go to the store because the tradesman, the plumber or the electrician told you, you know what, you need to get a specific part to do this. So you go to the store, ignorant as it is, but you know what, you're following the advice from the person who does the job. The plumber told me that I need this specific thing, whatever, and they gave you this item. But then you go home and it doesn't work. You took the advice of the rep in making the purchase because you didn't know what you were buying. But based on what you said, they said, man, this is what you want, man. You want this specific item. Man, I know what you want. We get it when we go in the store. Yes, this is what you're looking for. So, like I said before, you have a right to rely on the information they give, and you make the purchase. But you go home now, and the plumber come and say, you know what? That ain't what you want, man. You bring the wrong thing. You return it, and the business says, you know what? We're gonna charge a restocking fee. In that particular scenario, the business should not charge a restocking fee because you relied on the information given by the salesperson to make the purchase. It will be different if you went and you said, you know what, I need that green door. It's going to open on the right hand side. Yes, that is what I want. That is specific. Yes, this is what I want. So you knew what you wanted and you made that purchase. If now you go and you know what, it shouldn't open on the right hand side, it should have opened on the left hand side. So you have a problem and you have to return it. Then the store then if can charge a restocking fee because you were sure that this is what you wanted. You didn't get any help to make your decision. That was what you wanted and you got what you wanted, only to realize it was not the right thing. So a business should not charge a restocking fee if an item is defective or if you made the purchase based on a recommendation by one of their sales reps. So I need to make it clear. If you change your mind and the business wants to charge a restocking fee, they're in their right to do that. So they're going to meet you halfway. Should we say how much that restocking fee should be? We do not decide how much it should be, but we say it should be a reasonable amount. So they shouldn't take half. They shouldn't take 50%. And what we have been seeing is that they would normally charge a 15% or so restocking fee for taking back the item. That's left up to the business. So I just wanted to make that clear to you. Sponsorship, approval, or affiliation. So quite a few people go in and they have all these sponsors, oh, this body's sponsoring, or we have the approval, or we are affiliated with this person or whatever the case is. And I remember just a few years ago, there was an issue, there was a case, I think it was in England, it was Topshop, and they were selling t-shirts with the image of Rihanna on them. And of course, Rihanna went in, filed a lawsuit, and she was successful because they did not have the permission to use her image on their property. So even using someone's image or name to sponsor or to show, hey, this particular product or whatever is approved or this person is affiliated and it is not, is also an offense under the legislation. Again, it must be accurate. The information must be accurate. So using these type of things and they're not accurate, and because we know that some consumers will gravitate when they hear specific names or specific persons using. So if you know somebody is benefiting in a big way or they're known for using for doing certain things and you use their name or image, whatever the case is, but then it doesn't happen under the law, the legislation, it is an offense. So you need to be mindful of that. Offering gifts and prizes. So quite a few people do that, businesses do that, and that is fine to offer gifts and prizes. But when supplying or promoting goods and services, it is unlawful to offer gifts, prizes, or other free items without intending to provide them. So if you're going to be promoting this as a caption or as a catch to consumers, you must provide them. So it is unlawful to fail to provide them as promised. So the gift, price, or other free item must be provided within the specified time, or if no time was specified, it should be within a reasonable time. So if you said to me, when you buy a 3-piece living room set, you are gonna get a rug and you're gonna get the coffee table and a painting, but then when you made the purchase of the set, you didn't get the rug. But you didn't say if you were able to offer the rug, what else I would get. You told me that's what I will get, then that is what you should get. Or you're gonna get we're gonna have a promotion and we're gonna have a grand prize winner, and this person is gonna have an all expenses paid trip. But then when it's time to have this prize, no price, there was never no draw for this grand prize winner for this trip, this all-inclusive trip. So making those statements and they're not accurate is an offense under the legislation. Gifts, sometimes we might get gift vouchers. That is people give gift vouchers, gifts, just being a friend or whatever. And so they might offer you a gift voucher for service, or and most often it's for service. But even offering those things, a business should clearly state the conditions and the restrictions, if there are any, on how to use the vouchers. So the person who's making the purchase, they should know before to read the terms and conditions. If they're, some people might not have any terms and conditions, it is okay to ask a question so that you are aware of the restrictions and the limitations that you have after purchase. So they might have a deadline to use the voucher. They might have a certain time that you can use it. So Wednesdays and Saturdays might be full days for the particular business, and they say so that might be a certain restriction. So you can't book Wednesday and Saturday. You might only be able to book the other days. So you need to find out that. You need to find out how long will the gift voucher be valid for, because they do have an expiry date. And if for whatever reason that expiry date it expires, then what happens? Do you give me a part of my money back, or what happens in the case? Because every business has their way of doing things. So you need to find that out before making purchases, or even you might even receive the gift voucher. You might not be the one to buy it, but you might be the one receiving. These are some questions that you can ask. Or you could just call the business, find out, yes, you would have received the gift voucher. What are some things that you need to know? So that you are aware. You might, in some instances, you might need to use your cell phone and put a reminder in it. Hey, I got this, so that you're reminded. Hey, this time it's coming up. I need to use this gift voucher before it expires. So we need to be responsible. We have rights as consumers, but we also have a responsibility when we're conducting business out there. So you need to be mindful of that, because we would have had instances where persons called or complained that, hey, they had a gift voucher, but it expired. I know the business don't want to entertain me or whatever, and I can't just throw away this money because it's a lot of money. So let's be proactive when we're out there spending our money, so that we wouldn't be able to encounter these specific situations. We're going to move forward, and we're going to say, like we spoke on free offers already. Free offers, we spoke to that already, because, and like I said, it is a powerful, this word is quite powerful in advertising, because, like they said, Bajans love a freeness. I don't know if it's just Bajans or people, but if you can get free, why pay? That is true. If you can get it free, why pay? So it is a substantial draw card for customers, and understandably, many retailers to give free gifts and prizes, or to even offer free finance deals as an incentive to encourage customers to come in and buy from them. And we see it a lot. And I speak even to recent, where persons are saying no interest or no down payment, and you got interest-free time until February next year, and you had all of these offers. And really, it is to encourage persons to come in and shop. But there are some, on the downside of that, what are you getting into when you enter into these agreements? And it is nothing sinister, but you just need to be mindful that even in this particular section, when you said free interest for a specific time, what happens? Your interest is being, you might not pay the interest for the 3 months, but interest is still being incurred on the purchase. So the 3 months that you didn't pay the interest, something else is coming up. So you need to be mindful of that. So we are going into a next poll, and this poll, it says Richard contracts with a provider for a new cell phone service and receives a 50% discount on the handset. 3 months later, he receives a bill for the remaining 50%. When he contacts the provider, he is informed that since he accepted the agreement and he did not raise the issue then, his silence was taken as an agreement. Is this an unfair trade practice? You tell me this morning, ladies and gentlemen, if this is unfair. So the poll will be closing shortly. Tell us if that particular situation was unfair. And the poll is now closed. And 71% of the participants said yes, that it was unfair. 21% said no, and 7% said they're unsure. But I want to say to you that the 71% of the persons who responded yes were accurate. It was an unfair trade practice. And why was it unfair? Because you said to me that we're going to have a 50% discount on the handset. 50%, that is all I had to pay was 50%. I didn't have to pay anything more. You cannot contact me after to tell me that I owe you anything, because you told me that the new cell phone service, with the new cell phone service, I was going to only pay a 50% on the handset. So you can't come back after, because the contract was made there and then, to tell me that I have more money for you. So that would be considered an unfair trade practice. So if you go and they tell you, you know what, if you do this service, or whatever the case is, you only pay half of the money because you are entering into this service. You will only then pay a 50% for the handset. So the handset was originally $300. You pay $150 because you signed up for a new cell phone service. The contract is completed there. The only thing you would have to pay this provider would be your monthly payment if you had paid postpaid, or if you were continuing as a prepaid consumer where you top up when need be. So you cannot come back now to tell me that the silence was taken as an agreement. Again, remember when I said silence, you need, even though you might say, you don't tell me this in particular information, this was important for me to make this decision and you didn't tell me. So no, you cannot enforce it after. So you need to be mindful of that. But we can have further discussion in the question and answer segment on it. I think that comes to the end of the presentation, because what I am going to do is I would have received some questions from you that you want answered, and I sought to, where I couldn't answer myself, contact the person who could have to answer those questions. So I am going to close my presentation now. I'm going to stop sharing now, and I am going to turn back over to Peter. That concludes the end of my presentation, and I will go into the question and answer segment. So thanks again. Thanks for listening. Thanks for participating. You have been a wonderful audience.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. This is Julia Regis, and now we are at the question and answer session, where you can indicate by raising your Zoom hand, and Lear would give you permission to speak. Do you have any questions as yet?
Well, if nobody has a question, I have one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to jump ahead of anybody, but I have a question, so I would wait to see if there are any other questions first, and then I would ask mine.
I can go ahead, Caroline. Okay, you have a question? I see a question coming in. Is this Norma Johnson?
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead.
What I would like to know is if you have Cave Shepherd cash, for example, and you want to purchase an item that is less than the money you have, can they give you back the money, or why don't they give you back the difference in between what you purchased and what the amount of money was for?
Hi, Norma. That is a good question, but you know, like I said in my presentation, every business have their rules on how these specific vouchers must be used. And that is something that you need to ask the business before you make a purchase. So I know and I could speak for my own use of, if I use Cave Shepherd Cash, what you would need to do is to use the amount that would be closer if you don't have all the So if you don't have the $10, I think it comes in 10, 20, or 50, or 100, something like that. But you use it in such a way in correlation to the purchase that you're going to make. And if there's any extra, or because they don't have all the amounts, then you would put the cash difference to it. You said if you use it, if they will give you back cash. And I would have to ask a question on that, why they don't give back cash, but I cannot speak specific to why they don't give you back cash if the item costs less. So I can get that answer for you, and I can get back to you on that one. But like I said, every business have their own policies on how, and in this position, and in this particular situation, the Cape Shepherd cash and how it should be used. So that might be the issue, that they have policies on how it is exchanged in the store.
Thanks.
Okay, we have another question from Angela Holder. Angela, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, good morning, and thanks for a very good presentation.
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
have a question concerning the banks. Last year, when we first had COVID and there was talk about giving people an ease on paying their mortgage and all that, I had already made a payment to my mortgage for March. In April, the bank offered to let me have three months without paying the mortgage. But what they did is go back and reverse the payment that I had already made in March to include that in the 3 months. Is that fair? I don't think so, because that makes me pay more interest on the mortgage.
Hi, Angela. Well, that is something they shouldn't. And what you can do, what I am suggesting that you do, is to send this information over to us so that we can have the matter addressed for you, because a payment would have gone through already. So that should be already on your account. So send that information to us and we will have the matter addressed for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Okay, see no other questions at this time.
Yes, so like, yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay, Ian Maynard, go ahead.
Yes, please. This is a question regarding the bank as well. One, I would like to know what is the law regarding transactions going through the banking system. What's the time frame? As it relates to online banking. Had a situation where the end month was February 28th. Transactions online was made on the 27th, around 1:30 of the 27th. When I put through the transactions online, I print off the receipts that came off the transaction. But I keep on seeing all the time that I look into download the information as it relates to the date of the transaction, it keep on moving from the 27th as it was on the receipt to the 1st of March. I call someone who worked in the banking system for over 30 years about the situation, the same weekend. And she told me that the bank would only process that transaction the next 2 working days, which was Monday. Now, on 3 of those transactions I've made, there was a discounted date of the 28th for the utility company. Now, but the transaction online still keeps on saying the 1st of March. So why did I you can go into the utility company, but I wrote them a letter, 3 letters on the accounts. And I called the lady in the morning to let them know that if the transactions go through as said by the bank, that means they would negate me actually receiving the discount that I should be getting relative on the 28th. This morning, I called the lady because I saw the brought forward balances coming forward. Because remember, I spoke to the particular lady, wrote down her name and everything. And I asked her if she had made the adjustment to the accounts that she said she would. Well, I went back through it and started to compute the amount that was paid and the balance that was coming forward. Well, it was done. But I want to know if we were doing online banking, why would the bank only do transactions or only physically recorded transactions later on the day, which is Monday, and the transactions was done on the Saturday?
Sir, that is a very good question, but one that I will not be able to answer you. And why can I not answer you? Because the commission does not regulate financial services. And there is the Financial Services Commission. There's an office called the Financial Services Commission, the name speaks for itself. And so it looks at financial institutions.
Yeah.
What the commission looks at as it relates to anything financial, we look at the consumer contracts, and we look at those contracts and the contracts that you and I would sign when we go into the bank for services. And we look at those contracts for unfairness as it relates to the Consumer Protection Act.
Yeah.
Anything outside of that does not fall under the purview of the commission.
Okay.
So this is a question you may want to call the Financial Services Commission and ask a question. And if because it's a valid question because we're now into the online services now, or you might even want to put it in writing to your financial institution so that is documented. And you never know if something can change, because like BARP is such a big organization, and you can agitate for things to happen. So yes, we are now in the online, we're doing all this online banking and so on, and there's a requirement that we are expecting as it relates to services. So this can be put forward to them to let them know about your particular situation. It might cause somebody to question what they're doing and if things can be changed. So it would be good to put it in writing.
I am definitely going to put it in writing because I was of the opinion, especially now that we're doing online banking, that the operational side from the bank will be functioning 7 days a week, 24/7.
Well, I can't tell you that much because they will tell you, they might tell you different. So it will be best to relay this complaint to the bank.
Yes, I'm going to do it because I think legally, through the banking system, a transaction has until if you made a transaction during the course of a day, the bank has until 11:55 of that particular day to put through the transaction. So my query was, when you put through those online transactions, why did it not go through on that particular day and then retarded up to the first, which was the next 2 working days?
Which will be the weekend.
And something I saw on the statement too, my wife made a deposit on the Saturday, which is the 28th. When I look back through on the online statement, they made an adjustment within the statement to reflect that the $500 was done before the first. Yes. And she
Oh.
made it on the 28th and not the 1st. All those
Mhm.
transactions we did between the 27th and the 28th.
So all of that you should bring to their attention.
I definitely, well, as a matter of fact, I started to write it already. I went into the bank. I spoke to the lady about it. I did not really get a favorable answer. And they said, let me query some other people before I actually go forward and sit down and put it in writing to the bank.
It's always best to put things in writing. So, and you ask for a response, and we say to give at least 2 weeks for a business to respond to you. So you're writing a complaint or there's a situation, you need to get some answers, you write it, but also ask for a response within two weeks of writing the letter, and in that accompany whatever documentation that you have to substantiate your claim along with the letter. So
Right.
everything is in front of them.
Right. Well, the reason why I asked, when I asked questions first, I want to make sure that when I'm writing the complaint, that I have a response in relation to one of their customer personnel who gave me the actual information.
Okay.
I did not go on to write without talking to a personnel within there. I want to get information from them first before I actually write.
Oh, you can also, you know what you should also do? You should also copy this letter to the central bank too.
Yeah.
So that they are aware that this particular situation is happening.
Yeah. I will tell you from me questioning that, it seems as though it's a norm, but nobody really took it on. Everybody just accept that as a norm. That's the reason why I went to the bank and I questioned the bank the Monday after doing the actual transactions. It seemed to be a norm, but I didn't really question it.
Sometimes it only takes one person.
Yeah,
sometimes
so
it only takes one person.
I know I am going to write them, that's for sure. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write them because I was not pleased with, because I have copies of the actual receipts that came off that I download and print off, which shows the actual date.
Great.
Because I didn't hear that.
You in your account attach those to your complaint too.
Very much so. Very much so.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay.
Any more questions from the floor? Because I have some questions that were sent to us. Go. Hi, Norma.
I have another query. I purchased an item from Massey. And on it they give me a guarantee of 6 months for a sewing machine. But in reading their procedures for services for the guarantee, it says items under $400 is 6 months, and items over $500 is a year. But yet still, that when I went back to them, because the equipment wasn't working, they said, well, you only that's only a 6 month thing. But I'm saying that is not fair, because if you write $400 for something under, if you say 6 months for something under $400, why is it that when the item I bought is $500 and over, you're telling me I'm still getting the same 6 months?
How long ago was this?
This is only June last year.
You're going there a year. No, because time is always an issue too when submitting these complaints.
But I went back before then, because the item broke down in just before December, and I took it back.
And I
have the same problem again.
And what happened when you took it? When you took it back again?
I took it back this month, and they're saying that the guarantee was up in November. But I am saying if the item is faulty, they should have given me a new one and put that in to sell as on discount or whatever they want to.
But you know, I remembered I said, Norma, if the item can be repaired, that's the first option.
Yes.
Yes, it can be repaired. That's the first option.
Right, but it's twice now that the same problem has occurred on the same machine.
So I will suggest that you put
Mhm.
this issue in writing, because it's always good to put have things documented.
Right, I will do so.
So you need to write a letter to the manager of
Yes.
Massey,
Yes.
outlining your issue, what would
Yes.
have taken place. You would have returned the item twice already, and for the same issue.
That's
And so
correct.
you're putting it on record, but you need to also say to them how you want the issue to be resolved. So you need to make that decision. We don't make that decision for you, because at the
Okay.
end of the day, you have to be satisfied with the response that they get, that the remedy that they gave. You have to be satisfied. So we don't tell you what that remedy should be.
Right, right. But my query is, if you say an item is something costs $400, you give them a set a month or 6 months, and something over 500 you said is a year. Why didn't you not put it on the contract? Why you only signed it for the 6 months? Shouldn't the sales assistant know that it was should have been for a year?
Well, the sales assistant should know that, so they may need to do some correcting on their documentation. So this becomes now the policy of the company on how they are going to classify the timeline for warranties.
Right, right.
And if it is something that they do like a standard form document, because normally that's what they're doing, they just sign off or cross off to specific, then they might need to do some adjustments to it so that it is clear, because you recognize that there's an error, so that it is clear for the consumer. You don't get these questions.
Right,
so
right.
all of that you need to put in the documentation. But then if they do not respond, or the response is not favorable, like I said, the Office of Public Counsel is the office who addresses warranties, guarantees, refunds, and the replacements and so on. And the number for that office, if you have a pen, I can give you a number for that office.
Yes.
535.
1 minute.
And all the other participants can write this number. 535 2758 or 59.
Hold on, what was the last 4 digits?
535 2758.
Yes.
Or 59.
59. Consumer Protection.
No, that is consumer. That's the Office of Public Counsel.
Or Public Counsel.
Yes.
I thank you very much.
You're welcome, ma'am. If there are no more questions, I would have received some questions from Blair. Some persons would have sent in some questions before prayer so that it can be answered this morning. And one of the questions that was sent was, is it right for a company to quote a price when you order a product, but when they deliver, which was 4 days later, they charge a higher price, saying there was a price raise? I don't want to jump to conclusions, but this sounds like if this was gas that was ordered, if the person who sent in that question is on, they can clarify what they are referring to when they sent this question. So they were quoted one price, the item was delivered 4 days later, and they were charged a higher price, and they were told that there was a price increase. Is that person online who submitted this question? But even if you're not online, this particular question, so you call the company, you were quoted a price, and then there was a price increase. And I know this particular situation happened recently. So, and it pertains to LPG gas. So the prices of gas is regulated by the government. And you would hear periodically the government would have a price increase, and it would be advertised on radio and television and so on. So you call and you make your order, but no money, you did not pay. So only an order was made. And they would normally tell you when the delivery will be, because they have set dates to do their delivery. And during that time, there was a price change. The price change happened on the weekend. So what will happen in that case? You will be expected to pay the higher price because you did not pay. You just made an order, but you did not pass any money. If you had already paid, then that price increase. They will not be able to ask for the higher price because you would have already paid for a product. And in that instance, you really can't do anything. You have to pay the higher price because you didn't pay any money prior. So that is something that can happen. So when you order, should you pay? You decide that because everybody's different. You might not have the money, but you know you need gas, so let me make the order. So that they are in the right to do that. Only way that it would be an issue, like I said, is if you had already paid the lower price, and then if the item if the price would increase over the weekend, that would not in any way interfere with what the transaction that you would have done before. So that's the question. That's the answer for question 1. Another question was, why are companies selling appliances with foreign language instructions only in Barbados? So this foreign language situation and appliances, I know for sure there are labeling standards in Barbados. And like I was saying all through my presentation, that the information must be legible. So any person importing goods into Barbados, even though they might have a foreign language, they should also have an English equivalent. So you should be able to have an English equivalent to read manuals, specifications, whatever for the product. And if that is not so, you need to contact us. Let us know who the business is, so that we can have this matter addressed. And it's really to, like I said, to safeguard the interests and the consumers of Barbados. You need to be able to read. We are English speaking country. Our language, English, we need to be able to read. Yes, there might be some people who can read a foreign language, but we're not that we are not looking at those persons. But hey, we are safeguarding the interests of the public. So you need to be able to read, whether it is food, and even more so food, because we need to know what we are putting into our stomachs for our health. And appliances, we need to know how to use them, so that these specifications, like I said, needs to be clear. So if you have that issue, let us know so that we can have the matter addressed with the importer and by the labeling standards of Barbados. It is a requirement that the information also have English. Another question, if I buy an item that says it has a 10-year warranty and it becomes defective in 6 months, should the store tell me that the warranty applies to the country where the item was made? And that is a good question, because we do lots of importation, but then when the importer then make their decision on how much warranty they are going to place on the item. And like you said, sometimes the document has on a 10-year warranty, but when you look at where the document is coming from, that specification or that requirement was out of our jurisdiction. So it was where the item was made. So businesses have a right to make it clear. And if at all possible, we say you can cross off the you can block out that information because it does not pertain to our jurisdiction. But then some people might say, but it shouldn't be on there. And we know, we've seen it. We've had instances where somebody actually called because they went to a retailer and it was a soda. The soda was selling, and I think it had 50 something on it. Anyhow, it was in foreign currency. And the consumer called and she said that she should not pay the price that the business was asking for her because the price on it had, if it had on 50 US or 50 pence or something like that, anyhow, and she should have been able to pay that equivalent, that conversion. So that was an issue for the consumer. And if it is an issue for us, it's an issue for us. If it's an issue for you, it is an issue for us because, again, we want you to have accurate, we want you to have sufficient information. But then you might say, but it shouldn't be on like that. But there is a defense even for the business to when they have these labels. So and it is expressed in the legislation at section 18(4)(b), and that it is a defense to a prosecution of a person for a contravention of this section is really dealing with pricing. If the price appended to the goods was made outside of Barbados in relation to the supply of goods outside of Barbados. So if you have a business will have a defense because you can clearly see, hey, this marking was not done in Barbados, it was done outside of the jurisdiction. So they will have a defense if we had to go after them, or even if they go to court, because that's where our legislation, any decision pertaining to the legislation will end up is in the law courts. Then they can have a defense because they can clearly show that the price was appended outside of Barbados, and in this specific case, the warranty, the 10-year warranty, was appended outside of the jurisdiction. So that will be the defense. So, but we know we do a lot of imports, and we've said to businesses, if at all times possible, market out something, do something, because you just don't want the confusion, and you don't want to have all these, or you saying this amount, but then really this is what I'm offering. We have our own rules, regulations. Every business have their policies on how they're going to operate. And that's something we don't address at the commission. The policies of the company or the timelines for warranties and guarantees given by the company. That does not fall under our jurisdiction. Or the price for which an item should be charged for. That does not fall under the jurisdiction of the commission. We do not regulate prices of goods. The only price that officers of the commission have an input in is as it pertains to utilities. Anything outside of that, the commission does not have jurisdiction to address as it relates to price. I just need to make that clear. So I hope that answers your question. You can clearly see that the warranty, 10-year warranty, was affixed on the item outside of Barbados. It is imported, and the business then makes a determination. I am going to offer a 6-month warranty on this product. That's their policy. So we cannot say to them, it should be longer, or it should even be less. That does not fall under the jurisdiction of the commission. So I hope that answers your question. Any questions? I have 3 more as it pertains to flow, but I will leave the floor open just in case somebody has a question to ask before I proceed with the flow issues.
Yes, I have a question. Can you take it now?
Yes, Carol. Yes, Carol.
Okay, so I had a situation where around the last Black Friday period last year, around November, I wanted to get a TV for my mom, and I saw Courts had advertised in print that they had a 4K TV, brand name TV for $500. So I got somebody to go buy the TV for me, and Black Friday had passed and everything. But once we look at the TV, the box did not say 4K, which is a higher quality. It said 1080p, which is lower resolution. So I contacted Courts and informed them, and they said, well, all we would do is either just give you back the $500. I said, no, I want a 4K TV. They tell me, well, you could pay more to get the 4K TV because the Black Friday season passed. So I had a picture of the circular that they advertised in. They were advertising it in the store for $500 as a 4K TV, and they also had 1080p on it. So they had conflicting details on it. So I decided that that was not going to be good enough for me. They should just give me a 4K TV. I don't mind paying the difference, but they say no. You can't get a 4K TV. You can't get it for $500, and that's that. But I didn't think that was that. So I started to pursue it further up the chain, and I had the evidence. But eventually, they went and all backstock. This took hours on top of hours, and I was pursuing it based on principle. And eventually, they gave me a 4K TV. Somehow they found a 4K TV at brand, and to settle it, they gave me, and that was fine. But I was thinking about all the other people before me, because the workers in the store knew that this was not a 4K TV, that it was only 1080p, and everybody was buying it and going along about their business. Exactly. So in that situation, I felt that I was right, and that it was in my rights to ask for something, that was 4K. I don't mind paying the difference, but they were adamant, no, you can't get that. You could take back your money or buy something else from the store. But eventually we got it settled. So in that situation, how would something like that be handled?
You see, well, you were persistent and you complained. Some consumers would have just like you said, would have made a purchase, was $500, sound like a really good price, and walk away. And we would have said to all these businesses, because we had sessions with all the retailers, and again, the information that you put out there must be accurate. So if you are not putting out accurate information, if you make an error and you recognize there's an error, then you need to make a retraction. But that retraction should be as big as the ad that you would have put out. So it can be so small when you make that retraction that, the consumer can't really see it when you make that retraction. So you were persistent, you knew what you wanted and you knew what you didn't get. A lot of consumers, like I said, they're not aware. And if we don't get these kind of complaints, then we don't know that there's an issue, because our officers might not go down there checking or whatever the case is. So we rely on consumers to call and let us know what is happening, even though you might have had that matter resolved. If we had that information sooner, that is something that we would have been addressing with courts. So we need consumers. We can't see everything, we can't hear everything, we don't know everything. So when these things are happening out there in the public, we want you to call us and let us know what is happening so that we can have the matter addressed. Because like I said, it is just not for one, it is for all the consumers of Barbados out there that we are protecting. So when we investigate an issue, it might not, and I remember there was an issue that we investigated and we actually went to enforcement with it. And it was just a few consumers who had a complaint. I can't remember exactly how much, but when we start to do the investigation, we recognize much more consumers were having the same issue, And when we went and we had all the information in front of us, it was clearly a breach of the legislation. And we took enforcement action against this business, and it was one of the bigger businesses on the island. So no business is too small or no business is too big for us. If we need to investigate, if we need to enforce, if it has to come to prosecution, that's where we're ending up now with our investigations. Because, like I said, we've been around for quite some time. I think this year is our 20th year in existence. And so we've talked a lot, we've written a lot. So we're now enforcing the legislation as we ought to. So the next time, you know what to do, because consumers out there would have gone ahead and made that purchase, believing that they're getting a bargain or they're getting the 4K like you thought you were, and hey, didn't pursue it. So we need to hear these things, even if you think you need to pursue it on your own. And that's one of the requirements of the legislation, is that you try to resolve the matter yourself before coming to the commission. Even if that is the case, that matter can still be brought to our attention so that we can look at it for the others who are not aware, as much aware as you are. So I was glad that it turned out good for you though. But it would be interesting to know who you spoke to at court.
A lot of people, a lot of people I had to go through to get it handled, but they just dismissed me initially, you know.
And if you weren't persistent, then and that might have been with all the other consumers. So we want you to bring these things to our attention so it can be addressed for the wider population. It is necessary. It is necessary. And these things should not, when you think about it, or the names that are being called, these things should not be happening, because we would have had discussion, just like we are having this training session with you. We would have had training sessions with these persons. So they are aware of the requirements of the legislation. So basically there's no excuse now for this type of behavior. There's none. So I'm glad that your situation worked out to your benefit, really, and because you were persistent.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So one of the questions I got from Peter, even before this broadcast, even before we were having this training session, was why is Flow increasing their services by 3%, increasing their services? And persons were asking, and at this time, it's hard economic time, and Flow increasing their services. And I thought to ask some questions before I came online. And I spoke to our telecom analyst, and he provided this answer for me to these Flow issues. So he said, and this is what he said to me: I am currently not aware of any increase in rates. That said, the rates for broadband and mobile services are not regulated, and as such, Flow can change those as they see fit. So our cell phone services and the internet service is not regulated right now in Barbados. Only service that is regulated is the landline. So the mobile and internet is not regulated. And before Flow had put up that there was going to be an increase, I think Digicel had gone ahead and they said that they were changing their prices also. As it relates to our section and our legislation, we cannot tell a business not to increase prices. However, if they're going to be making changes, consumers must be given notice. And that notice should be at least 30 days before the implementation of any change. So, and given that notice should not just be in a newspaper or even a television ad or so on, or even posted in the business. It should be sent to you personally. So if you are having your information sent, your statement sent by email, then it should be sent to you by email. If you are still receiving your information by mail, it should be sent in mail. So it should be sent to you personally. And we say that needs to be done so that you will have a chance to review what the changes are. And if you are not in agreement with the changes, you can decide to opt out without any penalty out of the agreement because changes are being made. So you can accept the change or you can refuse to the change, and you can terminate your agreement without any penalties whatsoever. And that's what the legislation says. So that is what can happen. So some persons might opt, even in that instance, to switch the provider. When they weigh the options of the two, they can make a determination if they're going to stay with one as opposed to going to the next. So that's a choice then that you can make as it relates to the providers for these services. So that is what it is as it pertains to the increase in rates. Another question, why are Barbadian Flow customers charged way in excess of other Caribbean Flow customers for the same services or bundles? And what was relayed to me is that the bundles in other jurisdictions are not relevant to Flow's prices in Barbados. The pricing structure here is what it is because of our particular economic and social landscape. So each country's prices are based on their own specific local economic infrastructure. And that is such as taxation, the import duties, and the inflation rates. So prices will be determined by those characteristics. So Flow will make their prices here in Barbados based on ours, and the other countries will do theirs based on theirs. So it is not a one-all, fit-all, or is not that type of particular situation. So I just need to make that clear. So each country determines what prices that they are going to charge for their services and their bundles. As it relates to Flow increasing their services for landlines, he said right now there's no evidence of that happening because what has to happen is that the commission just issued a new price cap, meaning the price that can be charged. And what is required for Flow is that they would have to inform the commission of any price increase 25 days in advance if they want to have a price increase for the landline. And the commission would then review that and make a determination. But that is the position as it is to the landline. And so landline prices have not increased as we speak right now. There are no increases for the landline. But if Flow wants to have an increase, they must inform the commission about that, and a determination would then be made. If you purchase a bundle or service from Flow, shouldn't they advise you if they change it? Yes. So for regulated services, and that's the landline, the rate increases must come with advance to the public, advance notice to the public. So the public must know. And they're gonna know by way of like I said before, the bill, your monthly bill. They must advertise in 2 daily publications and in at least 2 editions. So they must publicize, have a wide publicity of any increase and it must be done that way to the public, and that is documented in the requirements under the utility regulation section. All of its social media platforms must be utilized too. So although that must happen so that consumers are given notice. So no consumer won't be able to say, oh, I didn't see or I didn't hear, whatever. It is specifically set out how they should do their advertising if there are going to be any increases. The last question that was raised, who is regulating flow rates and bundles, and can flow be regulated? The Commission regulates rates of fixed line voice services only. So that's the landline. The price cap is tied to an inflation rate and governs these specific services. For residential services, the price cap will apply to unlimited local calling, call waiting, voicemail, caller ID, and call forwarding. For business services, the price cap will apply to unlimited local calling, call forwarding, and automated assistance for customers. The broadband components of the bundles are not regulated. Like I said, internet is not regulated. The legislation that empowers the Commission makes it clear which services are to be regulated. In order for the services to be changed, there would need to be a determination at the government level that there was a lack of competition to an extent that regulation rates across the board was warranted. And those were the answers provided by the utility analysts for telecoms. If there are no more questions, that brings me to the end of the question and answer segment for me. And I just want to say thank you again for taking the time to listen, to share. And we deem it a privilege to be able to come and share this information with you. We are, willing, and we are on call if you need any, if you have any answers, if you need any clarification, if you go to purchase something or even to sign up on a contract, you're not sure or whatever, we always say to you consumers, you can give us a call. Our officers are willing to help, to assist you, and to guide you too. We are available to do that. So feel free to give us a call. We are working remotely. Some of us might be in the office, but it's just for short periods of time, but we are working remotely. So we are still available to answer any queries or complaints that you may have. So thank you once again for having us.